Hello everyone, George Gill here from Gill Technologies. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to talk a little bit about telecom expense management and how it affects small business. Often in the telecom expense management business, we're always talking about mid-size or enterprise-size businesses. But there's a lot of benefits for small businesses out there, and I want to focus on those in this particular posting. So really, the way Gill Technologies sees telecom expense management is there's really three components that encompass a full solution, what we refer to as a 360-degree solution. The first component is cost savings, often referred to as the cost audit component. Now, with the cost savings, when it comes to small businesses, we're obviously dealing with smaller numbers, but usually the actual savings is greater than for mid or enterprise-sized businesses, and there's really a couple of key reasons why this is the case. The first is, as a small business, unfortunately, the reality is you're less important to the big carriers. They're more interested in companies with 500 plus units, mobile devices, or 250 if they're a smaller carrier. But either way, far outside of the reach of a typical small business. And by small business, I should clarify, we see small business as any company with 25 mobile devices. That could be 3, that could be 10, that could be 20, but anything less than 25 is typically considered a smaller business when it comes to telecom expense management, the way we see it anyways. Okay, so the very first component, as I said, cost savings, and one of the reasons why there's typically larger savings is the carrier's not watching your account, essentially, the way they would be if you were a bigger company. The second reason is really the resources that a smaller business tends to have as compared to a mid-size or a larger company. In that, usually with a larger company, you actually have an assigned person that's their entire job to manage, support users on their mobile. With a smaller company, it's often a lot of people doing a lot of different functions, a lot of different jobs, and nobody's particularly assigned to the single job of managing the mobile workforce. So as far as resources go, whenever you're dealing with a shared responsibility, especially in something so technical as mobility and mobility costs and support, tendency is those costs aren't monitored as tightly as with larger businesses. And then finally is the skill set, and that really kind of leads back towards resources. When a company's doing multi-jobs and they're wearing many different hats, nobody really has the time to take that's necessary to learn all they need to learn about mobile costs to keep those costs down. Okay, the next thing is frequency and technology. Technology, as you know, is always changing. So with small businesses, they may go out and get the latest, greatest mobility or mobile phone because it has a particular feature that they really like, but they're not necessarily understanding the impact to their overall service costs. They might understand that the phone's going to cost them $500 and that's it, but the reality is often there's a lot of enhanced features that have to be added on to that cost that the carrier bills into as service costs, if you will. So the service costs tend to go up with these new great features that you're encompassing. So by the technology being employed by the company, they're actually also increasing their costs. By frequency, what I mean is simply the time that it takes to review the billing on a consistent basis. Because if we go back to the resources component, there's less resources. That time span between the review of that billing tends to be maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe much longer. We often walk into businesses that have never reviewed their mobility costs, and they've had cell phones for 10 plus years. And obviously in that case, the costs are much higher, and the savings therefore much greater. The final thing I want to talk about today is 30%. And And 30% is generally the minimum that we see with small businesses. Occasionally it's less, but on average it's going to be 30% or greater savings for small businesses. Now one might say, well, you know what, 30% isn't that big of a deal. I only spend $400 a month. I only spend $1,000 a month. I guess the best antidote I can give for that is 30% of a dollar is still 30%. So the way a small business should be looking at telecom expense management is if I can save 30%, 20%, 10%, 40% on any expense that my business has, I am on a good path to increasing profit and being a more efficient company. And I think that's critical to understand. 30% is 30%. If I were to say I could save you 10% on your mortgage costs, would you be interested? Probably. I mean, we see that as a personal cost. Often in small business, they see cell phones as a cost of doing business, which of course it is, but they don't understand that to maintain that cost, to keep that cost as low as they possibly can, they have to employ some sort of telecom expense management system. Well, that's it for today. Next week I'm going to talk about the next component of telecom expense management, which would be reporting and management, and how that can benefit small business as well. I'm George Gill. If you'd like to learn more about tips and tricks from Gill Technologies, please go to www.gill-technologies.com.